So, the Lions have made some moves today. If you guys have not heard, they have already extended Amon-Ra St. Brown. That was like 8 hours ago. But just now, about an hour ago, they have extended Sam Laporta as well. So they are making big moves this offseason as well. Let's see what they could do in the draft. Speaking of the draft, welcome to day number one, or video number one of the day. Today you guys are getting 2 videos regarding the NFL draft. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and what they need to draft in the draft as well. Give my 7-round mock draft. And then we're also going to talk, in today's video, we're talking, or in this video, of course, we're talking every team's needs before the draft. So, if you guys haven't already, like, subscribe, turn that bell on, as we do our best to post on this channel every single day. What we're doing tomorrow is talking Saints. We're going to break down what the Saints need. I know I'm wearing New Orleans gear, but it is game day for the New Orleans Pelicans, taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder this weekend, or actually tonight, 8:30 p.m. start time. You can watch it on Bally Sports or TNT, either one. I will be watching tonight. It's going to be a great game. Game 1 was a great showing. Cannot wait for Game 2. We just got to step up, make a bigger shot, and we're already there to match the Thunder in that series 1-1. But recap really quickly in the NBA before we get started in today's video. Of course, last night, the Bucks lost to the Pacers, the Suns lost to the T-Wolves, and I believe that was it as well. 2 1v8 games tonight in the NBA, that is the Celtics and the Heat, and then the Pelicans and the Thunder as well. So, a lot going on in the world of sports, but it is draft week, and that's what we're focusing on today. So let's go ahead and hop right into every NFL team's needs before the draft. Alright, here we go. We have the tier list right here. Ignore the bedspread behind me. I don't know what's going on with that. I just got home right now and started making on videos. So that's what's going on right there. Ignore that behind me. But we are here with every NFL team. If you guys don't know how this works, we literally just drag, we drop, and we talk. So starting off with the first team in the NFL, that is the Arizona Cardinals. They need offensive line for Kyler Murray, and they need a wide receiver. Obviously, trading Hollywood Brown to the Chiefs, letting him walk in free agency was not a good look by them. But they got a good running back. They got James Conner. They just need an offensive line to protect James Conner, and that starts with getting young guys in the draft. And then they need a wide receiver or two for the Cardinals. Now, they're rumored, obviously, to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., which would be a huge help for them. So, I'm going to go ahead and say that they already have that position locked, and all they really need is an offensive tackle, and they'll be in good shape to compete as well. Moving on, though, is the Atlanta Falcons. This one's kind of hard because they got what they needed in their offense this past year. They got a quarterback and Kirk Cousins this past offseason, but if it's for me, I'm saying they're going to need some more offensive line help. You can never go wrong with offensive linemen, especially with Kirk Cousins being at his age. They may need another wide receiver or two playmaker. They're going to get Dallas Turner in the first round. That's pretty much a given with their edge rushing defense. They need that young veteran help as well, so veterans can teach the young guys how that works too. But they do need help on defense, and they need some offensive line to block, and they could get another wide receiver. Now, moving on is the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, if I'm them, I'm taking a wide receiver here. This draft class is very loaded. They could obviously get a tight end and be completely set as well. Another blocking assignment. I'm going to take this hat off real quick. It's been giving me a headache. But for right now, they really have everything they need, right? They've gotten, obviously, Derrick Henry. That re-option is going to be deadly. They have a really young wide receiver in Zay Flowers. They could use another playmaker, though, at that wide receiver position. So they maybe need a pass catcher. And obviously, like I've been saying for these other two teams, O-lineman always helps as well. But moving on is the Buffalo Bills. And they desperately need a wide receiver in this draft because they traded away, they need corners too in this draft. They traded away their starting cornerback, and they traded away, obviously, Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans too. So with that said, that's what they need for this offensive to keep going, is a playmaker. There's rumors that they're going to in contention for Xavier Legette if he's available at that position. If not, maybe somebody like Ladd McConkey, Donnie Mitchell could come in for them. They got to have a playmaker involved. Xavier Worthy, another one that could just be there. But they got to have someone else involved in the pass-catching game. It cannot just be Dawson Knox the whole time this season from Josh Allen as well. Moving on is a Carolina Panthers, and I did this one yesterday, but I'm going to hit on it once again. Weapons, weapons, weapons for Bryce Young. We hit the O-line in free agency. Two of the best offensive linemen in the free agency period. We signed Robert Hunt as well, and then Damian Lewis are great additions to this offensive line to help build up Bryce Young. Now go get two playmakers offensively with the pick 33 and pick 39. If Adonai Mitchell's there, great, take him. If Xavier Legette's there also, take him at pick number 39, or take both of them, pick 39 and pick 33 as well. That's what we really need, is more weapons for Bryce. Jonathan Mingo's coming off a great year, but again, that's what we need, is weapons for Bryce. We hit the offensive line, we need a running back as well, so running back and wide receivers are what this team needs too. Now, moving on is Chicago, and oh man, do they need a bunch of things to go their way this draft, which they will. They have the number 1 overall pick this draft, and of course, they're going to draft Caleb Williams. We already know that that's given, but they also have, of course, the number 9th pick, where they're pretty much going to give either draft Brock Bowers, somebody like that, or Rome Odunze as well out of Washington. So with that said, Chicago is going to have their way in this draft. They also get a second rounder for next year as well. They have DJ Moore coming back. They're pretty much set with their 2 draft picks as well. They could use a little help on defense with the rest of the picks that they have, but I'm going to say that the Chicago Bears are pretty much set for the future. Now, moving on is another team called the Cincinnati Bengals, and they are tied for the most picks in this NFL draft with the team right above them, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. But they have 11 picks, so if they don't get some offensive line help from Joey B, they are in trouble. Especially last year and 2 years ago, where he went down with that knee or with that season-ending injury, and what he did this year, they especially need some offensive line help. So if they draft O-line, I would not be shocked here if they drafted them in this year's NFL draft. Now, moving on to the Browns, and me personally, fuck the Browns. They need a quarterback. They need, everything to go their way. So with that said, that's what they need, is they need a quarterback. Deshaun Watson's getting kind of old, and they paid him way too much money. So that's that right there. Frick you, Cleveland. Let's move on to my Dallas Cowboys. We desperately need some offensive line help. We gotta have offensive linemen if we're gonna compete in this NFC East. Last year, we were one of the better passing units around, but this year, that's not gonna be so different with the loss of Tyron Smith to the Jets, and then our 2 other starting tackles as well kind of went somewhere in free agency too. So with that said, we need offensive linemen, especially for Dak if he's still going to compete or be the starting quarterback this past year. He's a system quarterback. I have no problem admitting that now. I understand what that's like. But we got to sign CeeDee Lamb, maybe get another playmaker in this draft class. But our main focus needs to be the offensive line and a little bit of help on defense as well. Now, moving on is the Denver Broncos, and oh man, do they need a quarterback. They really do. They need to draft somebody like Michael Penix or Bo Nix. That's what they need to do. I mean, Jarrett Stidham, as much as I love the guy, he came from Auburn and Baylor, but as much as I love him, he's not going to get the job done, at least not right now in his current point in time. And Zach Wilson, trading for him was not the move for them as well. At least everybody gets to keep their jerseys if he goes with number 3, right? So with that being said, the Denver Broncos desperately need a quarterback in Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. as well during this draft. Now, moving on is the Detroit Lions. There's not really much that they need. They could obviously use some defensive help, I believe. They need some defensive line, maybe an edge rusher or 2 in the draft. But other than that, they're pretty much set. Again, re-signing Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown is amazing. They have their offensive line back. Jared Goff, they could draft a young quarterback to help Jared Goff develop that quarterback. So there's a lot of possibilities here for the Detroit Lions, but they desperately need some help on defense as well. It was that defense that gave up some of the most crucial plays when it came down to the NFC Championship game and to the, obviously, divisional round where they almost let the other team, the San Francisco 49ers, come back. But currently, that is what they need, is some defensive playmakers as well. Moving on is the Packers. They need some receivers, man. They really do. And I don't know what is going on here with that, but they desperately need some receivers. I don't know what it is about this Green Bay Packers organization, but they haven't hit a receiver at all. Obviously, drafting Jordan Love, what everybody thought they were going to get a weapon for Aaron Rodgers, did not work out. So with that said, that's what the Green Bay Packers need, is a receiver. Alright guys, we're back here with our tier list. Of course, I'm going to continue to run through these teams really quickly because we're already at 8 minutes for this first part of the video, and I'm going to have to cut this down as well. But moving on to the Indianapolis Colts, it is, of course, what they need in the draft, and they need everything. They have a quarterback, they have some good wide receivers, but they need some really big O-line help. That's really what they need in this year's draft as well. Now, moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, they also need O-line help. They don't need help on defense necessarily, but they could use another playmaker or two in this elite wide receiver draft that we're having this year. This draft class is loaded with talent across the board and wide receivers, so I could definitely see them drafting a wide receiver or some offensive line help as well. Now, moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. If they want to draft another receiver as well, they're more than welcome to, but they pretty much have what they need to keep contending for years to come. Maybe some more defensive help if it's necessary, but right now, all they need is really just a wide receiver, or maybe something defensively as well. So moving on is the Los Angeles Chargers, and if they're truly going to run the ball with Jim Harbaugh and that offensive head coach, that coordinator that they have, and Justin Herbert, they've got to get a running back. Their biggest need in this draft class is definitely going to be, one of the main focuses is offensive weapons, maybe a wide receiver like Malik Neighbors, or a running back within this draft too. So that's what the Chargers need. The Rams, on the other hand, they need somebody to replace Aaron Donald. They're going to have huge roles to fill if they don't replace Aaron Donald, which is why they're going to focus on this draft, building up that D-line and building up that pass rush to get to the next level, and especially to try and replace Aaron Donald as well. Now, moving on is the Los Angeles Raiders. This is kind of complicated because they definitely need a quarterback, but they also need wide receiver, tight. They don't really need a wide receiver. They have Devontae Adams, but they need some tight end, offensive line. They need everything. They just got to rebuild through this draft, and this draft class is one of the better classes to do it with as well. So Raiders pretty much just need everything. Now moving on to the Miami Dolphins, it's a little bit more simmered down. They need some help on defense. They need defensive help. They need some corners help. Obviously Jalen Ramsey's a great addition, but they need some corners help. So that's where the Miami Dolphins are with this one as well. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, they need a young quarterback in this draft. They got to nail their quarterback position. Like I said, getting Sam Darnold is not the greatest. He's not the best start, but maybe Sam Darnold can teach the new guys some new things. They're going to need a wide receiver if they're not going to pay Justin Jefferson, which they should, but right now, all they need is pretty much just a quarterback throughout this loaded quarterback draft class. So maybe they'll draft somebody like Spencer Rattler or something like that. Moving on, though, is the Patriots, and they're kind of like the Las Vegas Raiders. They need everything, and it starts with the quarterback position. They're going to draft Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Whichever one the Commanders take, then they're going to take the next one available. But they're also going to need some wide receiver help. They're always going to need O-line, and they need defense. They need pretty much the whole thing if you're the New England Patriots. Now, moving on is the New Orleans Saints. They, surprisingly, don't really need a whole lot. They could use another weapon to replace the absence of Michael Thomas, yes, but they also need some help, young guys, on defense. The defensive line's kind of getting old. Cam Jordan's getting up there in age. They definitely could use some young, fresh talent to come in at the defensive line position and help them out as well. Moving on to the New York Giants. They need a quarterback. Daniel Jones is not it. He's not going to be the guy. I know a lot of you guys are having hope for him, but he's not going to be the guy. So that's what they need is a quarterback. Maybe they'll land it with JJ or somebody like Michael Penix as well. But moving on to the Jets, they need a tight end. They're going to draft Brock Bowers with this tight end. That's pretty much the only position group that I could think of that they need. They got what they needed in free agency this past year with signing Tyron Smith. Offensive tackle. They signed wide receivers last year. They could use another weapon, but they need a tight end, a young, good tight end, and Brock Bowers could definitely fill that position. Now moving on to the Eagles, they don't really need a running back, but they need somebody who can carry the ball, and they also need some help on that defensive position, that corner position as well for the Eagles. Now, moving on is the Steelers. They're checked on quarterback. They're checked on running backs. What they need is a wide receiver. This draft class, I cannot express it enough, is loaded with wide receiver talent, which again is why they need to find a right guy in that wide receiver, especially with the loss of Deontay Johnson. Now, Moving on is the Seattle Seahawks. They need help on the offensive line. Losing Damian Lewis is a big part of that, and that's pretty much what they need. They need D-line help. They need O-line help. They also could use a tight end or two as well at that position. But moving on is the San Francisco 49ers. They're pretty much set. I don't know. I can't think of anything that they would need. So they're set. But moving on to the Bucs, they need some help defensively. That would be a great fit for them. The Titans. This is kind of a big one, but they need some help on the offensive line. They also need a running back to replace the absence of Derrick Henry. They signed Calvin Ridley, but he cannot just do it alone offensively. They need offensive tackle, and they need somebody like Derrick Henry to get the job done as well. And our final team of the day is the Washington Commanders. They need everything. They need a quarterback. They're going to draft Jaden or Drake May, whichever one they prefer, and that is that. And we'll see what else they can do in the draft. But that is all for me ranking giving every NFL team's needs before the draft. Anyway, that's where I'm going to cut it for today's video. Of course, if you haven't already, drop a like, subscribe, turn that bell on. We do our best to post on this channel every single day. You're getting 2 videos today. I'm about to record my Dallas Cowboys mock draft, and then tomorrow we'll talk Saints mock draft as well. So 2 videos today as we get ready for the NFL draft. But let me know what you thought of my team needs for every team in the NFL down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and of course, I will see you all in the next video. Go Pels, one NOLA.